Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Faisel with Friends. My name is Salomon, and I'll be your guest host today for our podcast. Joining me tonight will be Dr. Dan. Hey, Dr. Dan, you there?
Yes, it's great to be with you.
How are you? Trying to fill in some big shoes here, but but
You'll do great. I'll be taking questions and bringing them in for you.
good. I'm glad that you're here. But wait a minute, I'm getting some special message here. It seems like Faisal, are you there?
so so my flight got canceled. My early morning lecture tomorrow morning in Baltimore uh, got switched from in person to virtual. So I'm not on the way to the airport tonight, but I'll be here. I'll be here. This is Say's show tonight, and I'll just be here to keep the conversation moving.
To our viewers and friends are in for a treat. I'm glad that you're here, Faisal. We're really looking forward to this interaction with Dr. LaToya. LaToya, how are you?
I'm well. I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
We're extremely grateful to have you here, LaToya. You know Faisal and Dr. Dan by now,
Yes.
we'll try to do our best to have this exciting conversation and learn from your experience there and how our great organization was able to support our team members and our patients during Hurricane Ida. LaToya, how have things been there thus far? How has been your last couple of weeks? I know they've been relatively intense and life changing for all of you there. Walk us through that. How you been?
Well, things are starting to, get back to normal slowly. Over the last few weeks, we went right after the hurricane. We went a whole week. My family went a week without power. However, speaking with some of my patients, even today, they just had power restored late last week. So they had like 3 weeks with no power. Many of them didn't have a generator either, so they kind of just suffered through the heat, those that couldn't leave. Some people are just returning home. Many of them still can't return home because they have so much damage. Thankfully, we didn't have any damage here at my home, but many of our colleagues as well also had damage to their homes, and they're trying to get things repaired now. But even though they're a little bit displaced, they're still there working hard, taking care of our patients, and making sure they have what they need.
Well, we're glad that you and your loved ones and our colleagues there are safe and are getting back to normal. I know living here in Florida, we're every year we're exposed and relatively prepared, but really you have to be in the eye of the storm to be able to prepare for what this storm may bring. How does one prepare? How did you prepare for this, LaToya, knowing that this was coming in an intense way?
So I think we at work actually is when I found out that the hurricane was even coming, because when I'm home, I rarely watch the news. So on maybe Wednesday afternoon, they notified us that the storm was coming and that it was approaching pretty quickly. And so we made sure that we had enough water here at home because we didn't plan to leave. So we made sure we had enough water, food, things that didn't necessarily need refrigerating just in case the power went out. We, of course, rushed to get sandbags to put at the doors to make sure if the water made it to our house that we wouldn't flood. We also made sure that our other colleagues had things that they need, or if there were people that needed to be evacuated, we tried to help with that. Even with our patients, we made sure each of the providers had a list of their patients' phone numbers. So on that Friday when we left work, we had a list of our whole panel, so that we can reach out and check to see who was evacuating and who was not. We actually started on Friday at work. We dedicated most of that day Friday calling our patients so we would know those who were staying, because after the storm, we wanted to make sure we checked on them to make sure they were safe, first of all, and just make sure they have what they need, because we know they already have a lot of challenges, and then to have the storm come will put even more on them. So that's what we did, to try to get prepared. But sometimes it's hard to prepare when you don't know how bad it will get. So yeah, so that's what we did.
I can only imagine those, that Friday, how things were in the office where people were trying to do their best to prepare themselves, but all it, and their patients, but also thinking about, am I not preparing for my family? So I think that selflessness that as healthcare providers and here at ChenMed, that we put our patients first, and our colleagues as well. Um, I know there were a lot of phone calls made that day, right? And probably within the 24 hours of the hurricane, making landfall. What was one of the things that our patients were worried about when you were reaching out?
Those patients that were staying, many of them were here during Katrina and and Betsy and so many of the other hurricanes, and so many of them are, they don't want to leave. They refuse to leave. They feel that everything will be okay no matter what. So one of the things, the ones that were staying, they wanted to we would check to see if they had water. If they didn't have water or they didn't have enough food, we would get whatever we could that we had at our disposal to take to them to make sure they had it. We also told them to make sure they had batteries and flashlights and things like that, just in case power went out, because they were expecting the power to go out. And so there were some patients, especially our top 40 patients, we reached out to them because we knew they were the ones that were most at need, if something were to, turn up with this storm. So we reached out to all of them first while we were at work. Many of them had left, because they were here during Katrina and they stayed. And they were so terrified because not only was Hurricane Ida coming, but it was coming on the anniversary of Katrina. So many people were very afraid. They were very anxious. And they were just trying to get out of here as quickly as they could. And those that were staying, some of them were very afraid, but they either couldn't leave because they didn't have family to leave with, or they were in, at the time, the senior facilities, and they couldn't leave at that point. They did later evacuate many of them when the power went out, but during the storm, they were still here. So yeah, it was intense.
It's interesting how, the resilience of human nature, having had the experience with Katrina, there were still people that wanted to stay, and it's powerful to know that they had all of you there to support them after the aftermath. So I would say maybe that gave them comfort to some extent, right? Knowing
I think so. If I have time, one story I would like to share about one of my patients. On Sunday night, actually, one of my patients called me. He's kind of bedridden. His wife is also a patient of ours, and he called me and he was in a panic. He was like, "Dr. Fulton, part of the roof just fell in. Can you send somebody to get us?" We called 911. The phone hung up. That was the other thing they had trouble with. During this storm, 911 was not working. They had difficulties too. You would call them and they could not connect. So that whole night, 911 was really not available. So what we did, I called my center manager, got her on the phone. We called whoever we could to see if we could get someone to go there and get him out of the home. Finally, we were able to get in touch with some of his other relatives, and they were able to finally go get them out of the house. And then they evacuated to Texas. But after all of that, I was talking to my center manager, and she was like, it's really, really amazing that our patients trust us so much, and they really think we can do everything. So, but that family made it out safe, and they're doing well now.